Hi, welcome back. I'm Nate Moore. This is lesson 28. We're going to talk more about pivot charts today and walk through another example. So if you remember, you go to the Insert menu, Pivot Chart, point to the data, which I'm going to do Control Home to get up to the top, and drag all the way across till I've got my data. Shift in, down. Got 50,000 E&M visits recorded in that table, and here again I have the pivot table over here, an area for the chart here. Here's where my pivot chart filter pane ended up, and I've got a pivot table field list. I think what I want to do today is I want, again, I've got 50,000 patients, and let's say I want to look at E&M coding levels by physician. So now what I've got is levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 by each of my physicians. And you'll see some of them, like this Dr. Swordfish doesn't seem to have any 1s or 5s. And Dr. Grouper doesn't seem to have any 1s. And Dr. Marlin doesn't look like he has any 4s or 5s. But it's a little bit hard to see in such a small area with all these different doctors. So you think, well, what can we do and how can we make this easier? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is, I kind of like this, the way this is displayed, but I'm going to see if changing this to a show values as, if we do as a percentage of the row or as a percentage of the column. I think let's do percentage of the row. So now what I've got might help to look over here for just a minute. I'll drag this out of the way. I'll try to drag this out of the way. Is now we can see Dr. Grouper level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, and a grand total of 100% across each of these. So that's what we're looking at. But again, it's a little bit hard to see because I've got so much data here. Let me show you a couple tricks that make it helpful for me. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click here to get the pivot chart tools, design and change the chart type to a line graph so I can see it a little easier, but it's still kind of crowded in there with all these different, it's kind of hard to tell who's who and what's what. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over and look at it in a separate page. So as long as I'm clicking somewhere in the pivot chart, I'm going to move chart location to a new sheet and click OK. And now what I've got, and I can even hide this, is I can look at and see level 3s are about 40% of what Dr. Grouper does, about 41% of Dr. Kingfish, 54% of Dr. Marlin, and you can see that. The other thing that's helpful once you're here on a big screen is this pivot chart filter pane. I can easily say, you know what, I want to look at some of the, looks like snapper and swordfish look kind of low. So if we take those two off, put snapper and swordfish in, now I can see snapper and swordfish are both level 3s are very high for snapper and still pretty high for swordfish, and you don't see hardly any of the red is 2, the green is 3, and the purple is 4. So there's not a lot of 1s and 5s for snapper and hardly any for swordfish. Swordfish is almost always 2, 3, and 4. Another way that may be easier to see that would be to drag the rows and the columns the other way. Again, you can leave this chart here, move back over to sheet 1. There they all are. I'm going to put them all back. And what we're going to do is we're going to come over here, turn the field list back on. We're going to put the code level there and the doctor level there, and let's look at our table. So now what we're looking at is, okay, Dr. Grouper did 0, 11, 11, 11, and it doesn't add up to 100% because we need to switch these now. Instead of doing percentage of the row, let's do percentage of the column. And now Dr. Grouper's adding up to 100%, so is Dr. Kingfish, Dr. Marlin. We're back. We're doing percentage of columns because we switched rows and columns. Let's go back and see what the chart did. Same thing. Now we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we can see the peak of 3. Let's go back and look at snapper and swordfish now. The thing I like about having a pivot chart on the tab I'm working on with the pivot table is I can get it close and see the chart change. Once I know I'm close to what I want, a lot of times I'll put it on a different tab altogether, have that pivot chart stand on its own, use this to filter things, and you can run it just from there. Let's move this over here. Yeah, it's too small. We'll drag it down there just for a minute. So what do I know? Dr. Snapper does 70%, 70.08% of his E&M codes are in level 3, whether it's for a new patient or established patient, whatever, they're level 3. And there's not a whole lot of, well, there's no 1s or 5s for Dr. Swordfish. Now, you want to compare those to other partners? It's real easy to bring the filter pane up and say, well, I want to see, I know where I am with Snapper, I want to see where these two look. And there they are. And I can see, again, Swordfish is no 1s or 5s. And there's the peak and Kingfish and Sailfish are pretty similar, so I'm going to take those off. Now we're going to look at Grouper and Marlin. And that easily, you can adjust a chart and see trends and see Dr. Grouper is a lot less on the 3s, but a lot more 4s and a whole lot more 5s than his colleagues. And that's something easy that you can set up and show in some kind of partner meeting or board meeting or in a one-on-one with your docs. These fields are still available where you can move things forth and back or add other codes. It's just sometimes easier for me to get that screen and see it exactly the way I want it and make sure it makes sense to me, and then come back and do the chart. It's an incredibly powerful tool to have the ability to do a pivot table and then hook it to a chart that can update on the fly, especially without even having the pivot table on the screen. Hope you found that helpful. Thanks for watching.